LEC Spring Playoffs where Fnatic and Splyce are fighting for a spot in the semifinal. Can I just first say, 3 games in, a lot of hype coming into the series. I'm entertained, dude. Like, this is a very fun series. There's a lot of picks. There's a lot of changing strategies. There's a lot of back and forth. I'm loving it.
And the last game was just on a Nexus with nothing protecting it for like 15 minutes. It seemed like even in a match that Splyce lost, they kept holding on. And honestly, it looked like they were going to win that game.
Yeah, a lot of fun. Now, of course, as the reigning champions are preparing for what could be match point, which is match point for them, we did want to run down the line and take a look at everything that's been important in the series and will probably be important in the next game or 2 games. And I think we have to start by a bit of the craziness that was that game 3. Looked like Fnatic was completely in control, some good fights early on, but then they dropped the ball.
Well, that's kind of the weird thing, because I feel like we had kind of 2 games in one. If you look at the first 25 minutes, whoa, Fnatic looked fantastic. They're for sure going to win the next game, no problem. If you look at the last 25 minutes, crazy late game. It actually, in the end, it was just like, hit the Nexus, come on, just like try and rush it down. It took them Hylissang sneaking his way into killing an inhib.
He loves that inhib.
He loves it to set up this potential play where they could actually go for it. And I love they use, obviously, Whippo with his passive to tank it up.
Yeah, I mean, in so many ways, this game mirrored that barn burner of a game between G2 and Fnatic a few weeks ago. And it is that same idea that Fnatic were clearly the better team during the game, but then it's a bad play going into the Nexus tower, into the Fountain Tower, actually, that ended up giving them a chance.
Well, let me then ask you a small side question. You bring it up, the barn burner versus G2 Esports. The fact that that was a 1-game 100% and it became one of the most difficult wins for them all split. It happens again here. I'm starting to sense a bit of Fnatic, I don't know, is it leniency? Is it inability to close out these games when it's the time to do it? And I'm only saying that because whoever they're going to play next, if they get there and also Splyce these next games, it's only going to get harder.
I think Fnatic right now seem like the kind of team when they get a massive advantage, they want to chase a little bit for a few extra kills, get a little bit close to the fountain maybe to see if we can get that one extra kill. I would say normally in a big game they wouldn't do it, but they just did, which obviously gave them some trouble, but I'm not concerned. I think we've seen the last 2 games now that the composition that was stronger, the team that managed to snowball successfully early, gives themselves room to make a mistake where the enemy team is about to come back, but you still have them push so far back. Splyce in game 2, now in game 3 as well. So whoever succeeds in the early game, for me, has the edge right now.
All right, and that's what we'll see in this game 4. We need to talk about Rekkles versus Kobbe as well. We put a lot of emphasis into this matchup before coming into this series. And I have to say, I think it's been very influential as well. You know, we've seen the Vayne versus Jinx. You know, you give them that agency to carry the team fights. We've seen them go toe-to-toe every single game. And I think big game winning for their teams, respectively, in game 1 for Rekkles and game 2 for Kobbe.
Yeah, the first 2 games were very much focused on the ADCs. And even in this game, you could see that both teams were really putting a lot of resources toward the bottom side of the map, because the way this series is panning out is, yes, the early game is super, super important, but ultimately you have to make it to those team fights, and that's where players like Rekkles and Kobbe are really shining. You can see, again, Kobbe like holding on with the Jinx in the back, just getting the resets on the passive.
Better so far?
Oh, I think this series, I would say Kobbe.
Yep.
But I actually think it's because Fnatic has relied less on Rekkles than Splyce has relied on Kobbe. I think obviously Tristana game is a big example of that, but the Jinx game combined with obviously Humanoid on Azir were like everything they had. They just had to do everything to protect these 2 guys to try and keep them in the game. Where if you look at Rekkles on the Vayne, it wasn't actually that much about him because Whippo was popping off so much on the Aatrox, just to highlight one other player there. So I think it's a great thing for Fnatic that they don't need Rekkles to win these games. Obviously, Splyce are playing heavily around Kobbe, and in the last game also Humanoid.
Yeah, fantastic. We'll see how that evolves, whatever it may be. Fnatic is on match point, though, so Splyce really with their backs against the wall at this point in time. So they need to change something or do more of the same. What is it, and who's it going to come from?
Well, I think it comes from Xerxes, and I talked a little bit about him at the top of the day, coming in saying this guy has such a good read on the early game that he has very high impact. And I think in game 1 and game 2, we saw pretty much peak Xerxes in the early game. game, finding ganks, getting his lanes ahead. And even in this last match, you'll remember he snuck through lane, he got that first blood for Jinx, so it seems like everything was going well. But it turns out, once you start losing some skirmishes, he's had less of an impact. So I need him to either go harder in the early game, get his team more ahead so they can win those mid-game skirmishes, or just pick a champion that can have more of an impact as we progress through the game.
Agreed, or?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think the last game, trying to snowball bot when they had the Jinx versus the Vayne, with obviously Cersei coming in as a potential a person who could impact the lane, that could have been the way for Splyce to get the early advantage that we talked about being so important. I'm also just looking at top lane. And a big reason for that is the amount of diversity we're getting in every single game. Like, Whippo has been on the I'm a Jarvan who's 0-4 and 100 CS behind. He's been on the I'm a Cho'Gath now. I'm just a giant meat shield. And now he's on the Aatrox, where he ended up becoming, you know, one of the big star players in the last game. I think he's showing a lot of different things on his side. Where Chachi, the last 2 games, it's been tanks. It's been very much, I will sacrifice myself for my bot lane. And in this last game here, while I actually think he did okay on the Shen, we didn't get to see enough snowball towards Kobe and Noskaren in the early game. Splyce needs to make a decision now. Do we trust that if we go again, supportive Chachi, Cersei on a ganker, we can actually kill this bot lane? Or do they step away from that strategy and say, listen, we are actually not succeeding here, at least in the last game? I think they did in game 2, so they could still do it.
I heard that the teams are ready, so what would you do? What would you do if you were Splyce?
I would try and pick a lane you can play around with Kobe and get him ahead early.
So back to the old plan.
Stick with bot lane.
Stick with bot lane
lane.
because that's working for you. Backs against the wall for Splyce. It could be monumental if they bring us to game 5. Or will it be the reigning champions who make that step towards the semifinal? Let's find out.
Thank you very much, Sharks. Just a quick update. Whippo will be featured in our POV stream over at twitch.tv/RiotGames2. Nothing to do with that Aatrox performance in Game 3. If you are just joining us, Fnatic are 2-1 up over Splyce. Splyce were very vocal coming into today that they wanted to go to Rotterdam. They were going there. They were going to join the finals weekend. And this is the game where they have to prove they belong there when there is no room left for error.
And I really agree with Deficia's read right there. So far, the most successful iteration of Splyce that we've seen in this best of 5, and frankly in the regular split, is when they rely on Kabe, when they get him his firepower, his comfort picks. So if I'm Splyce right now, I'm looking at my, star ADC. I'm like, what do you need? How can we set you up? What can be success? Because at this point, you go back to comfort. Do what you know works.
I agree. And now we're going to be keeping an eye on what exactly changes in the draft. Already we're seeing a bit of a shakeup with the Kayle coming through and the Rakan ban. So respect going towards both Nemesis and Hylissang. I like these bans a lot, but it does leave open things like the Sylas right now. But fortunately for them, they don't need to ban the Karthus, of course, because they are on the blue side this time.
And we have had questions about the fact that Sylas has been banned by Splyce from the blue side, so maybe Fnatic take the gamble here, leave it open thinking that Splyce aren't comfortable playing it, and get kind of the 2-for-1 special if Splyce don't take it away from them.
A few seconds left to figure it out. Hecarim has found himself in the ban pool, not showed up yet. Jarvan has been very high priority, as has that Lissandra as well. So a number of picks that these teams can decide where they want to go, and it will be a Ryze ban. Humanoid Ryze was hugely important, and we were asking questions about the Sylas. It has been first picked near instantaneously.
Now, I will say that I expect this to be in the jungle more than anywhere else. I do think that Cersei is very comfortable on the champion, and I think that he can be a very effective jungler. I had a really good chat with him about it, and he thinks his clear speed is very good, his dueling is very strong, and it also gives you room to put carries and more flexibility in your draft elsewhere, but that flex option is a very valuable thing for the side of Splyce.
Yeah, and speaking of flex options, Fnatic then respond by picking up their own flex options. They've got the Jarvan. We've already seen Whippo and Broxa play the champion. It means that it's very unclear, but
yes.
Double down.
So this is great because the one thing I was going to talk to you about, Frost, was is it concerning that we've actually seen such little Hecarim in this series? Because I was like, well, if either of these teams want to go up against G2 or Origin, you're going to need this pick to challenge the likes of them. But instantly, Splyce lock it in. It does have the flex option of being put into the jungle or top, but I think we can safely assume that for now, it's going to go in the top lane.
And the next pick up is going to be this Vayne now for Reckless. Once again, blind pick. Safely expecting Hecarim top, expecting Sylas in the jungle. That means we're looking for an 80 carry, as well as that mid laner for Splyce. Let's see what Fnatic decide to pinch, because this will give us some more indications on where these champions are going.
I feel like it should be you have a couple of options. I'm curious if they'll ban long-range champions, because I feel like picking the Vayne when you already see the Tahm Kench here probably feels pretty good, because you're like, you know, it's not a heavy engage support champion, so unless it's paired with something like an Ashe or a Caitlyn, they're not going to be able to do a lot to me, and maybe I get a free lane phase, which that Vel'Koz actually tells me that,
I was just laughing at it.
they're saying, okay, it's a Tahm Kench, I want a free lane, now limit some of the marksman options that Kobbe has to try to punish this pick, and let's get Reckless going again.
Yeah, I agree. Interestingly, we're seeing an Akali ban. Now, the reason for this is Akali has been considered one of the better matchups into Hecarim. She's a very strong side lane duelist, and as the game progresses, typically Hecarim scales well, so does Akali, and she can beat him in the early laning phase. So, really good ban, and definitely makes the matchup easier for the side of Splyce.
Another pivot here, Jinx banned away. This is 2 target bans to Kobbe.
Yeah, and again, those long-range marksman picks or bot lane picks that can be paired with the Tahm Kench and still have a lot of priority and control into the lane. That said, Kobbe still has the option to go, look for a Tristana, to look for a Caitlyn, and still try to go toe-to-toe.
That's what I want.
You want Draven now?
I think, no. It's terrible. It's really bad into this draft. They're not going to do it. I'm laughing. I think Tristana makes the most sense right now.
I agree.
I really don't like the matchup, though, with like a Tristana and a Tahm Kench. Ashe is the other one you mentioned I'm kind of leaning towards right now, and it would offer like another engage alongside the Hecarim.
The only thing that I'm concerned about for an Ashe, because Tahm Kench Ashe is such a powerful lane, is that Kobbe doesn't get that like hyper carry potential as opposed to putting him on the likes of a Tristana. So for me, I feel like I like the combination. It'd be cool, but then you're taking some power away from Kobbe in terms of his scaling potential.
Well, let's see what Kobbe decides. He's got a few seconds now to round out the draft. It was Alistair locked in for Helisang, and it was Aatrox was the final ban from Splyce. So Bwipo will have the option of running that job in top lane or giving it to Broxy in the jungle. And of course, as Splyce rounded the composition, will give us more knowledge. Ladies and gentlemen, the tiny master of evil, it is Veigar. Now, which lane is Veigar going to?
It's bot lane, quick shot. We talked about this earlier in the day. You said, what surprising bot lanes could we see? And I seem to remember me saying, I think you have to be careful of the Veigar, Mr. Quickshot. It's my, I was correct again. Now, what we actually talked about was Veigar Alistair, but with the Alistair being taken away and the high priority on the Tahm Kench, we won't be seeing that. However, the really cool thing about Veigar in the bot lane is how effective he is against champions that don't have blinks. Fun fact, Ezreal's the only one, which means that it's very easy to lock 80 carries down towards the bot lane and set up a lot of plays.
Which is why I think the,
No! Wait a second! Okay. So,
this is so big brain, such big brain.
Why is it big brain, Vidius?
Oh, it's more to do with the fact that Civ is really good into the Veigar. The spell shield means that you'll never get locked down by the event horizon. And Vayne should do very well into the Sylas. The thing about Sylas is he actually struggles to pressure you in lane early on anyway. So against the Vayne, he's never going to be able to do anything, and he's just going to get outscaled.
I'm just so curious about the levels to this, because the fact of the matter is that Fnatic have trained people that he will blind pick Vayne. He's done it multiple times. He does it this time. Splyce are like, this is easy. It's the Vayne versus Veigar. We've got him. We've set the trap. And then they just go one level deeper, one dream deeper in this Inception and pull out the Sivir.
Okay, now how...
Ode to Caps.
And I was just about to say that. Fnatic are 1 win away from the semi-finals next Saturday in Rotterdam, where they will face the loser of G2 versus OG, which is happening tomorrow. Splyce are a loss away from being eliminated from the Spring Split LEC. And in this game, we had a last-second pivot that Sivir comes in, pushes Vayne to the mid lane. And I need to know, where are we going to be looking early game-wise? Because this is not the type of composition we've seen anywhere.
I know that we've just talked about, the fact that it's this crazy outplay from Fnatic. I do want to put attention to that I thought that Splyce were going to go back to comfort in their final game, back to the wall, do or die. But the fact that they pulled out a pick like a Veigar, that they're trying to stretch and show off everything that they prepped for this match, this also threw me for a curveball. And I'm very curious how they're going to execute on so many new, unique picks.
There are so many fun, unique picks to talk about, Quickshot, but we are here in Game 4. Fnatic 1 win away, and if you haven't got your tickets yet, remember that next week, the winner of this match will go up against the loser of G2 versus Origin. It's going to be an exciting one. and they will then have an opportunity to go up against the winner of that matchup, obviously, in the final. So really, really exciting stuff happening next week. So I'm looking forward to that, depending. And remember, Splyce can still come back in this game. They've got a lot of creative picks. They're not completely out of this series yet.
They can force Silver Scrapes and Game 5 if they can make this Vigar work. So, taking a look at this bottom lane, Vigar TK coming up against Sivir, Alistar. How is this matchup going to play out? Because Vedius, you knew it was going to happen. Or at least you researched it.
So I actually researched it from solo queue. Ender and I play a lot of ranked games these days, and we've been experiencing a decent amount of Vigar and Alistar. And the reason why that's so scary is the moment that the stun, I believe it's called Event Horizon, comes down.
Yep, that's correct.
The Alistar will knock you into the wall. Now, that won't happen this game. The main thing you're actually doing here with the Tahm Kench is providing that extra bit of safety and security for the Vigar, but typically what he's very good at is gank setup. Because you land the Event Horizon, very few AD carries can get out of that situation, and I jokingly said Ezreal's the only one, but Sivir is the other exception because of her spell shield.
Again, it's this idea of the Thunderdome for Splyce. They want to set the Event Horizon, and then here comes the truck and Xerxes and just roll someone over who's trapped inside of it. And we talk about how Vigar is a unique pick. The other one is the Hecarim. Now, normally we've seen the Hecarim top with all of the changes. He's got a lot of power back into his Q. In the jungle, I don't like it as much because I feel like for this type of Hecarim to really be effective, you still want a lot of those damage items, and it's just less gold than laning him.
Point.
So I'm curious if Xerxes is able to get a snowball going by camping that bot lane and able to springboard himself into a power point like that Trinity Force Hecarim that thrives in the top lane.
And also, Vedius, didn't you expect the Silas to go in the jungle in Xerxes' hands? So there's that added flex that ended up being double bluffed by Fnatic.
Yeah, we talked a little bit in the draft about how you can flex all these different champions. Xerxes will now just realize that his blue buff has been stolen. They actually set up very little vision towards the top side of the map, and I do notice the Brox used a sweeper. I wasn't tracking early junglers, so I'm not sure if they actually swept out any vision very early on, but ultimately Brox is going to walk away as a happy man. And the reason why I bring this up is because something that Xerxes talked to me a decent amount about is Hecarim in the jungle early on, very weak, very little that he can actually do, and he's a huge risk of getting counter jungle, so you want to avoid matchups like Lee Sin or Rek'Sai, but one of the cool things that he can do is once he's got that Predator, he's very effective at setting up ganks, and already he's looking top.
All right, Bwipo is going to get caught up by the devastating charge. The claw, however, cannot be interrupted. And Bwipo, with the next fake out, he took the Lissandra top lane, survives the first gank.
And that was kind of the gamble, you know, double
They're
down.
going back.
All right, they are going back because Bwipo pushed forward a little bit. The minions are doing so much work. Chachi goes so low. Remember, Bwipo's waiting for the claw. Teleport is going to start being channeled. Bwipo is going to get some support. All of Fnatic are rocking up. Nemesis and Reckless, they join the fray. Bwipo stays alive a few seconds longer. Will get cut down. First blood picked up by Xerxes before he is turned around. Now, Nemesis trying to chase onto humanoids.
Now, the question I have, Frosk, is a double teleport worth, even though Splyce ended up getting first blood? You've now lost an entire wave towards the bot side of the map. Nemesis even teleported up as well, and I just bring into question, should they have invested that many resources?
Oh, Hylissang's locked inside the baby cage. Teleport's being channeled. There are three of them.
Wait a minute.
It's Bwipo that's coming down to the bot lane. Reckless decides to stay top lane. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Shenanigans City here, and it's Fnatic that are really pulling out all the stops.
For me, I do want to focus in on the fact that it was Hecarim who also walked away with the kill there. And
yes.
Again, if we talk about the fact that Broxa did all of that work to attempt to 3-buff him, to keep him behind, Xerxes had to force something. If that gank didn't work, Hecarim would be so far behind, and then this champion just doesn't work, where someone like a Jarvan can work on low econ. The utility built into his kit is so impressive with his flag and drag and all of the other carries. So I love the gamble that Xerxes made, and I love that it paid off, and ultimately, because he got that, or picked up that kill, I'm going to say it is worth for Splyce in the long run.
Well, the risk is now, here we go, the collapse.
Oh my word, the Event Horizon doesn't matter from that Glacial Path. Now it's a 2v2, and Xerxes trying to run down Bwipo. He's rampaging all over his face. Here comes Broxa. Not going to be enough just yet. Kobe gets caught around, knocked up, locked down, killed by Broxa. All of a sudden, the picks and bans for Fnatic pulls them ahead.
And somehow, Fnatic are finding kill after kill. That was supposed to be Splyce's play in the bot lane. That was supposed to be them punishing the flashless Bwipo, but it ends up being an all-in from the Alistar Lissandra bot lane, and Fnatic walk away with the kill.
But what about the, that's so ingenious. Like, now that I think about it, it's like, Bwipo didn't have flash. He's been camped this entire series. Let's put him in the lane with a partner so he can't punish his flash.
Not any partner, his old partner from last year. The original duo that took Fnatic so far. They're able to find another 2 versus 2 kill, and it was the Brawling Brothers that found so many advantage for Fnatic last year when they played together.
And back-to-back scenarios of how the event horizon can be negated. Now, of course, you're not going to get those scenarios every single time, but the Sivir Spell Shield, the Glacial Path, showing up when Fnatic needs it. They're 1,400 gold up. They're 4 kills to 1. Brox is already on a roll at 2-0-1. And this Veigar has not yet had the impact they wanted it to, but you cannot deny the power that it will have as we get to those skirmishes in the mid-game.
And I can't help but feel that Bwipo was like, man, I gotta go back to top lane. Give me that bro fist, Hylissang, one last time before we make it forward. And it's such great stuff. Beautiful setup in the bot side of the map. Fnatic now lead with 4 kills to 1, and just look at the goal difference already. I was asking the question, was that teleport play worth it? Well, so far, it's working out massively for Fnatic.
Well, to be fair, it was after disaster that happened in the bot lane. But yes, ultimately, it was very worth it for Fnatic.
And I think for us to add on to that, it's very rare when you see a teleport play like that play out, and then the people just stick to those lanes. But when you've got such a unique draft and approach, it worked out. Take a look at the damage there. That's a devour by Noskera, and he's going to spit Kobe back out.
It's kind of one of the differences between these teams. We always talk about how well researched Splyce are, how they're one of the smartest teams in the league. I'll hold it.
All right, here's the damage. Brox and Bwipo doing a lot of work here onto Chachi. Stand United will buy some time. They will get the flash out of him, so it ends up being a successful gank.
But the fact is that when Splyce are kind of in their set playbook plays, the difference is that teams like Fnatic, G2, and Origin have that collective experience playing with the roster, that they're able to put a spin on it, that they can problem solve during the match. And I think that's somewhere where Splyce are still kind of finding their feet with this iteration of their roster. They need to kind of warm themselves up and learn how to change gears a little bit faster when things don't go according to plan.
Yeah, I think that's very valid. And something that the analyst desk mentioned as well was that they expect the winner to be whoever gets the early game advantage, and right now it is Fnatic that holds that. Now, that's not to say that Splyce can't come back, but you've got to remember that they lack a marksman right now. And one of the big late game win conditions is that marksman role, and Kobe isn't playing that. He's not on the champion that you often look at him to carry in those late game fights with, and that's not to say that a Veigar can't swing a fight in the late game. The fact that his ultimate was changed a while ago to do percentage missing health, he has that burst ability to just eliminate someone from the beginning of a fight, but it takes a while to get there. You need to stack up your Q, you need to stack up that passive, and you need to get those IP items, and Fnatic may be able to snowball before you even get there.
It changes the game in how Splyce actually need to siege and kill towers, because why we can see how strong this composition can be in skirmishes and in 5v5s. Yeah, they can siege towers, but it's through killing the opponents and diving them who are standing on the tower. The power of Event Horizon to zone away from something, to give you some time to go up and hit it, but this is a lot of melee champions that basically if Splyce ever want to be a position to walk up to Fnatic, they have to dive it. So they must be ahead of the clock, and they must have a lot of gold that they can kill people safely under that structure. And against this type of composition, that is so terrifying. That's like Jarvan, Lissandra, Alistar. You never want to dive it. You have to be so far ahead to execute on that.
Well, they're not. It's nearly 10 minutes in for us. Just 2,000 gold there or thereabouts. Infernal Drake was just picked up by Fnatic, and I saw Xerxes trotting around the river trying to set up a play. Also important to note that Vizichachi has been playing mid lane for the better part of the last 2 minutes. We'll be recalling shortly his Humanoid who's going to go toe-to-toe with Bwipo, has thrown out the hijack. Will be able to cast, self-cast the ultimate. In fact, or it may already have been there. Now Bwipo's going to go down on Sword Shadows, comes in. This is the turnaround for Splyce. They've got themselves one. Brox is forced to run for his life as Hylissang will be going down. He flashes over the wall. That's a follow-up from Humanoid. Then finally the kill. That's 2 quick kills for Splyce.
Love the confidence there from Humanoid, knowing that he had the level advantage over Bwipo, and he was strong enough to go for that kind of a trade against the Lissandra. He had the Shenot backing him up, he knew Xerxes was on his way, and even though initially it looked like Fnatic had the numbers advantage, it was simply a matter of time until Splyce turned this one around.
And this is exactly what Splyce need, because again, sieging is going to be difficult, but if they can get someone like this Silas, like Humanoid, really snowballed into a side lane and then also have the Hecarim, they don't ever need to try to siege where it's fair. They can try to split up the map and again, rely on that 1-3-1 or 1-4 that we've seen Splyce attempting again and again in this best of 5.
One of the scariest things about Splyce in these situations is the shield that he gets on his E that actually mitigates so much damage against his opposition. And I love the way in which he utilized the ultimate from Lissandra as well to ulti himself once again to buy time, because he knew the team was on his way, and now he can become that potential carry that Frost was just talking about.
On a personal rant, it's insane watching hijack from Splyce while Bwipo is playing Lissandra, and my brain is just expecting it to be in Nemesis's hands. It's just such a different draft. It's such a different decision-making than we're used to seeing. But Splyce, they've not given up yet. They managed to get themselves those 2 quick kills. As you mentioned earlier, Frost, Xerxes on this Hecarim, he needs to get some of that gold. He's been involved in all of his team's kills. 2 kills, 2 deaths, 1 assist. And I want to see what direction he goes now that he's started to pick up. He's completed his first item.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that as well, Quickshot, because he is going for the Cinderhulk immediately into the armor boots. Now, armor boots make a lot of sense against the double AD carry that's going to mitigate a lot of the damage, but it's something that ties back into what Frost was saying earlier, where he is quite a gold-intensive jungler, and he spent a lot of his time farming so far, but even then he is behind Broxah. He hasn't had the same pressure in his lanes to just kind of invade, get a lot of gold into his back pocket, and so right now he's not that big, scary Hecarim. He's basically just a tanky CC bot with his ulti.
I'm actually really curious what his final build path is going to be if he decides to really spec more into that tank, especially because Humanoid is starting to kind of pick up steam on this Splyce, or showing how powerful he can be.
I don't think he'll go for the Trinity. Whoa, that's a lot of damage.
Bwipo has been chunked out by Humanoid, and we will see what direction Xerxes goes item-wise, but I also want to mention Hextech GLP 8000 picked up by Kabi. Farming with his Baleful Strike, he's managed to pick up around 65 additional ability power at this time, and we keep track on how that plays out. And Humanoid definitely sitting very comfortable on this Splyce, and he's bullying everybody in his lane. As all of a sudden, Kabi's in some trouble. He's actually going to try to turn it into Hylissang. From Ideal Burst was used, rather. Bwipo will buy some time, maybe just enough to help get a kill to Xerxes. Bwipo survives the onslaught of shadows. He outplays again, and Broxah takes down Humanoid.
Bwipo, that was clean. He recognized that he was going to die, so he wanted to take at least someone with him. He flashes and locks Xerxes underneath the tower, and then his team is there to support. Fnatic find themselves 2 quick kills, and mad props to Bwipo for making the outplay.
And frankly, even though Bwipo gave up the early kill later on, his fancy footwork, this is just not the only clean play. This guy is clearly a very strong Lissandra player. He has been playing this game incredibly well.
Oh, and you can tell he was shopping right there. He was not paying attention. He gets smited, he gets locked down, and then immediately flash root. And because he has the Aftershock procced as well, that means that he has enough survivability to walk away with his life.
Now, unfortunately, Nemesis did not get the kill. The reason I say that, Nemesis has 73 kills, Humanoid has 72 before this game. Now they are even on kill score. We'll keep track on who will end up having the most kills at the end of this game. One of the fun little mini games I like to play, but Fnatic nearing 15 minutes up 2k gold.
Now, notice as well how initially it was Splyce that swapped Humanoid into the Lissandra matchup because he felt so confident in it. Now they've actually swapped things back. They're like, okay, Bwipo, we actually want you playing into the Shen. We want to make sure that Vayne is playing against Splyce so that he can't be this really obnoxious lane bully after he's gotten a couple of levels under his belt.
And again, I think this can actually be really punishing to a team like Splyce, who still has, you know, some kinks to work out in terms of how quickly they find their lane assignments. Eventually, they will get on the ball because they have very strong fundamentals in terms of their league, but if Fnatic are constantly just kind of changing the equation, Splyce are usually a team that are a bit slow on the uptake to find the right answer immediately.
Honestly, they can't be slow anymore. You know, as this game plays out, we're running out of opportunity, running out of time. You see the plates taken between the respective teams, but I mean, item spikes have now started to come in. You know, one across the board, Blade of the Ruined King for Nemesis, Essence Reaver for Reckless, GLP plus, need to see Large Rod. You'll see those in a moment from Kabi. And no clear indication yet. We have a Sapphire Crystal for Xerxes. I'm waiting on bated breath to see which direction he will be taking this.
That almost suggests that he's going for the Iceborne Gauntlet route.
One would hope until he walks back with
yeah.
Infinity Edge and
because,
I'm ready to go.
Because you really want the Sheen on Hecarim because of how regularly you can proc it, and Iceborne is a nice kind of alternative. Now we see Hylissang getting locked up in the cage.
He has Event Horizon, didn't do anything for Reckless. The Rift Herald will be able to boop a lot of damage. Turret plates fell over a minute ago, and Bwipo needs to once again have some fancy feats. Ultimate is available for him. Does he manage to self-cast? Yes, he does. Eventhorizm should still just about tag him. No, timed out. Bwipo gets chunked down, manages to get the root, and this time round, Xerxes Shadows will onslaught him down. Rift Herald is still being bullied away by Cobby.
I don't know why Bwipo was there, for being honest. You can clearly see that he was trying to rotate down with his team. He did it by going through the route in which he didn't have vision, and he ends up getting caught out.
I also just remembered, if anybody is watching the POV stream, it is Bwipo's POV, so you actually got to see that insane tower dive from his perspective.
Oh, yeah.
We can ask fans to verify and prove if he was shopping when he ate the devastating charge.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah,
So fans at home, if you were watching, let us know. And then, of course, in the next game, if we go to Game 5, it'll be either Hylissang or Norscarin POV. Nemesis manages to get the Blade of the Ruined King before Xerxes jumps on top of him, starts to rampage around. Here comes Bwipo. Vizichachi goes back in. They've got themselves a kill to Nemesis. Bwipo's running for his life. Chachi should go down to Hilly, but the Devour will buy a lot of time. Chachi survives thanks to Norscarin, but here comes Broxah. One little boop. He will poke him with a Dragon Strike and then use the Blast Cone to get to safety. Broxah is able to sneak himself a kill on the board.
Now, Nemesis, he had blood in his eyes there, and he unfortunately got punished for it. He knew that he could get this solo kill onto Shen, and he was like, all right, we can commit to this, because Vizichachi, as you can see, he's not standing in his shroud, so he ends up taking all this damage, but then he's not looking at the mini-map. He doesn't realize that Xerxes is coming up from behind him. He thinks that he's safe because Hylissang's here. He knows that the rest of his team has teleport. Unfortunately, it's a 4v3.
That was the thing. It was like a bluff that was immediately called. The fact that Hilly's sitting in the background right there, Nemesis is like, I've got this. If anything goes wrong, Hilly's right behind me. We can 2v1 this situation or 2v2 it. And then Splyce just doubled down and threw all of the teleports on it.
And they end up walking away with the kills, which means that the goal is still in Fnatic's favor, but you can see that this is still a relatively close game. Considering how Fnatic led with a 4-kill-to-1 advantage, it kind of looked like this was going to be an incredibly one-sided game, but Splyce are starting to answer back.
And of course, itemization, we are continuing to scale up. You've got Hextech Revolver sitting on Humanoid. Silas, Righteous Glory picked up
that makes
for
sense.
Xerxes, as well as Tiamat sitting in Chachi's hands. So continuing to scale up, but I keep looking at Humanoid and Xerxes as two of the more influential players as this game will continue to play out.
I'm watching this 1v1 duel. They're both posturing for it, and Nemesis is now on the losing end.
All right, Humanoid's got so much damage onto Nemesis. Nemesis has flash available to him on the counter and the turnaround with the help of Final Hour. Nemesis put a lot of damage back, though.
And it's just so interesting because you can see how Nemesis, I'll hold it.
All right, now Bwipo
should be okay.
Oh, there's so many fights in so many lanes.
Because you can tell that Nemesis and Humanoid know that it's going to come down to execution in terms of how this duel will work out between Vayne and Silas. And they're both like, can I win it? I can win it now. No, I can't win it. And so it's this constant ebb and flow, tug of war back and forth between them.
Silas is a weird champion, man. You always think you can trade him, and then you can't. And when you think you can't trade against him, you can. He's like... he's definitely an odd one to try and figure out trying to duel him.
And there's actually probably a lot of questions. We don't know how much time that they actually get a hold of this champion in scrims to get the necessary practice.
Yeah, I mean, they banned it pretty much every game last week, right? Which heavily suggested the Splyce didn't want to put high value on it. But regardless, right now the siege is coming through from Fnatic. Going to use the Claw of Doom to escape from the Cage of Doom. Therefore, Doom cancels out Doom, and no Doom does in fact occur.
And the spell shield from Reckless avoids any and all Doom as well. Keeps the pressure on, though. That Event Horizon is still a very, very high cooldown. By the way, Cobby's over 130 ability power. Farmed up from his Q, that Baleful Strike. That's more than 2 Need to See Large Rods secured in additional AP already.
Nice. Now, the one thing I didn't mention earlier was the reason why he's going GLP. It actually just makes it a lot easier to land the Event Horizon. Same principle as Ari. Hers is like the Charm, whereas Vigar is with the E. Obviously, E is a little bit easier to hit than a Charm is, but still kind of adds to that extra bit of utility. The only issue I have with it is it kind of delays the damage. And I think right now that's kind of what Splyce is lacking. When you have a tank heck him, you have a Shen in the top lane, Humanoid, while Silas can do damage in like skirmishes and team fights, his actual overall damage output is kind of lacking. And against a double AD carry, that's my biggest concern right now for Splyce. Where is the damage in these team fights going to come from?
I don't know. When we see a lot of these skirmishes, it feels like there's still a lot of damage popping out.
Yes.
I like the fact that
But they're skirmishes, that's the thing, right?
Yeah, it's a very hit-and-run playstyle. So Splyce actually got fairly lucky with the fact that it is a Cloud Dragon, so there's not a big incentive to really group up.
Yep.
and they can try to play out all of these lanes with a lot of their mobility between the Shen, between the Hecarim, and continue to play kind of this ambush-style League of Legends.
It's so important for Splyce. They are behind in gold, they're behind in dragons, behind in towers. Reckless is even stealing away jungle camps from Splyce, and Splyce are against the wall. If they go down here, they are eliminated. They will take 4th place here in the LEC Spring Split, same as their regular season. Final placement. And we said at the beginning of the day, Fnatic actually wanted to pick Splyce. That was their ideal choice. They couldn't, and Splyce were in 4th, and that's why Fnatic picked Vitality. And now we'll see whether or not Xerxes and Humanoid can run down Nemesis, take so much damage on that onslaught. Stand United committed as well, and it ends up being an easy kill, but a lot of resources invested for it.
Classic combo right there of having the back line threat of the Hecarim, and then you have the Shin on top of it, so it's not really a submarine. What's the name for that?
Speedy Ninja.
We're gonna workshop
Yeah,
that.
we're going to workshop it. I'm not sure we're going to find it just yet. Maybe we will. But take a look at the pressure here. Vizicachi can use that flash taunt from behind. And of course, Reckless Spell Shield will block one of the hard CCs. And there's so much to work with. Frosky talked a lot about how the Splyce comp, when they can, they want to look to tower dive, and 1,000 gold difference right now is really negligible as Splyce have evened out. They've got themselves 2 towers.
It's when they have leads, they can look for tower dives because they have a lot of threat on it, but otherwise, they really needed Humanoid to get ahead. So it has been so critical that Sylas has been picking up all of these kills because it offers that really important win condition for Splyce that they can continue to split up the map and again, hit and run, high mobility, make them skirmishes. Don't 5v5 unless we're really ready for it.
And one of the things that I have to ask, surely the fact that Fnatic have 2 ADs versus none gives them more power to defend?
You would think, yes. In terms of defend, yes. In terms of team fighting, the more I think about it, the more I'm not entirely sure. The one thing having double AD does help with is also securing the Baron, which Fnatic has started off. Now may go for a bit of a fight.
All right, turn their attention to Chachi. He's been knocked up into the air twice. Give that man frequent flyer miles awarded by Fnatic.
Very nice.
But very nicely done by Norscarin. Oh, Reckless jumps in. He's already got himself one into copy. Peel away from Humanoid. Cataclysm comes down. Defensive flashes as Norscarin finally goes down. A follow-on chase. Humanoid gets caught out and killed as Fnatic find 3 after they force Splyce to react.
And Ender talks about this all the time. It is so hard to execute on these side lanes and maintain pressure when Fnatic have a 5v5 composition or a comp that can 5v5 well, and they force you to come to Baron. Fnatic just immediately walked to it and said, they have to turn and fight us, and we're going to crush them when they come.
All right, Hylissang's going to be interrupting, playing interference here with the help of Bwipo as well. Baron should go down to the double ADs and Broxah. Onslaught of Shadows just to buy some time. Bwipo and Hilly don't even go down. Nemesis is looking to chase. Chachi looks like he's going to be able to make it out. 5 members of Fnatic, they get the Baron. They're going to turn their attention to this middle turret, and they extend that gold lead.
Yeah, but now it's what can Splyce get back in return, because here comes the team.
All right, take a look at this. Teleport's coming out. Chachi's already down. Xerxes used his ultimate, remember. Going to use that devastating charge on the Bwipo. Bwipo's going to go down. Now the tension turned around. Nemesis running for his life. He's tumbling. He stays alive. All of a sudden on the back end, Reckless is looking to clean things up as Copy is now left alone. 4 members of Splyce are down, and Fnatic turn their attention. They're going to chase Copy back as well as take the tower.
Splyce do what they can to get something back after what was an awful fight, but it only makes things worse as Fnatic find another 4 kills, are looking to siege onto the base, and look, they're even trying to get the kill onto Kobe.
Yeah. That one horizon doesn't mean anything to Sivir.
That one was personal for sure. They hunted him down, they found the kill, and now they'll break into the base of Fnatic.
And this is just devastating here for Splyce.
So as we jump into the replay, we're actually going to start off pause and have a look at how all of this is set up. So you can actually look at the positioning of Fnatic all grouped around the entrance to the Baron pit. And you think in this situation, okay, they're actually in a bit of a dire strait, but what they actually want to do is turn and fight onto either Vizicachi or Xerxes. So as we roll this play out, what you're going to notice is they're going to immediately blitz out onto Vizicachi. So he's going to get killed almost instantly, and Splyce want to try and save him. So he has a good taunt, he gets consumed, and then this event horizon onto the 2 members thinks, okay, this is fantastic, but then Bwipo right here, diving into the backline in this kind of a choke point, ends up locking everyone down. And keep your eyes on Broxah as he continues to move forward into the fight, getting CC after CC after CC, allowing the rest of Fnatic to chase them down and find a big fight.
And of course, as we come out of the replay, Fnatic have found themselves an easy pick-off here onto Humanoid. Nemesis is on a rampage, 4, 2, and 5, and Fnatic aren't done yet.
And Fnatic just ran back onto the map. They said, let's get as much out of this Baron as possible. They sent one member mid to feed it all into the inhib. They grabbed the wave bottom, and now they've set themselves up for not just these towers, but also the Infernal Drac to fall back onto.
Hylissang is trying to put the nails in the coffin of Splyce's spring split. They are on the verge of being eliminated as Fnatic find themselves the inhibitor turret. The rest of the squad are chasing onto Norskeren. Humanoid still dead, remember, from the previous engage. Norskeren goes down. Now the inhibitor drops as well. Fnatic with the Baron empowered minions consider the Nexus, but instead they take another inhibitor and they back away. Xerxes got the onslaught of shadows. Does he decide to engage? I'm looking very tentatively as Fnatic at 25 minutes into the game, up 10,000 gold, up 2 inhibitors, and they will be securing their 4th dragon of the game.
And frankly, it is very difficult to come back when you have lost 2 inhibs, especially on this type of composition from Splyce. We kind of talked about how they want to split up the map, where they want to fight, but at this point, it is really difficult to deal with Fnatic when they just group up and say, no, you must react to us. There's nothing more that you can trade on the map.
And it's really easy for Fnatic to set up this dive. They already found the kill onto Humanoid, which is really where all of the gold is. And you can see, we talked about it, where's the damage coming from for Splyce? Kobe couldn't even get close to the fight because of how easy it was for Fnatic to jump on top of him, and now it's just a matter of time. Fnatic grouping up towards the top side of the map. They have more than enough damage, itemization, everything to close out this game and make their way to the semi-final.
Yeah, that's the truth. Next Saturday in Rotterdam, if Fnatic can close this out. Tomorrow, let's wait, we'll get to that in a second. Let's take a look at this. Vizichachi goes down, Nemesis takes him out. Fnatic continue to put pressure onto the center turret. Here comes Humanoid, trying to do some work on that Silas, but simply not enough. Reckless is now on a rampage at 4-0 and 7. Kobe is trying to run away. The Event Horizon is not working. Primordial Burst does not have enough damage. The cheekiness of the Vigar did not help Splyce. Fnatic were able to pull the rug out from underneath them, and Fnatic are now turning onto the 3rd and final inhibitor.
Fnatic will be making their way to Rotterdam as the 3rd inhibitor goes down. All they need is the minion wave. Only Xerxes stands in their way. Splyce could not handle the pressure from this Fnatic squad.
Absolutely not. Splyce put up a good fight. They improved and impressed, but it's Fnatic that will have the last laugh. It is Fnatic that has earned the right to defend their title in Rotterdam. "29 kills, 21 of which were secured by Fnatic. And you could not have expected half of what happened this game. With Lissandra top, Reckless playing Sivir in the bot lane, the Vigar, and then of course seeing exactly how it all played out. Splyce have been eliminated, 4th place in the Spring Splits.
And I'm glad that we get to see Coach Duke and Xerxes on the screen right now, because that's the key word that I want to take away, the unexpected. You know, most people, myself included, assume that Splyce would come into this, that they would go back to the 5v5, that they would go back to the scaling, the team fight. I don't actually mind that they threw a wrench into the plans, that they tried to be experimental, that they tried to catch Fnatic off guard. To me, I'm like, yes, you know, I can respect if you're going to bow out, throw everything that you've got at them.
And while Splyce unfortunately were not able to make their way forward, they still stopped the win streak from Fnatic, the team that went 8-1 in the second half of the regular season, the team that have honestly dominated so far throughout playoffs, having to work their way through round 1, round 2, and now they get the opportunity to challenge the top 2 in Origin and G2, both big rivals of theirs from history of old.
And of course, if you were waiting to see who would play next Saturday in the semi-finals in Rotterdam, your first confirmed guest will be Fnatic, once again taking to the stage in Rotterdam in the Ahoy Arena. Tickets are available if you go to eu.lollysports.com/Rotterdam. You'll find out tomorrow who they will be facing. Reminder that our new playoff format will see the loser of tomorrow's match, the number 1 and the number 2 seed from the regular season, face off against Fnatic for a shot at the finalist, which will be the winner of tomorrow's match.
On the Saturday in Rotterdam.
That's it.
You're only going to see them if you get tickets. You have to go get them now.
Yes.
Thanks, Riot Vedius.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to sell out that hard. But nicely done, Vedius. Also, by the way, I'm terribly disappointed in all of us. We should have named the Shen Hecarim combination the Trojan horse. Yes.
Wait a minute.
No,
I don't
it is
think that
good.
works.
It's good. I mean,
He's not really sneaking in. He's just kind of like...
That's what I'm saying.
He like knocks.
I prefer the Turbo Ninja, if I'm being
well,
honest.
let's leave it at this for now. Fnatic eliminates Splyce. It was a great turnaround. Fnatic started a bit slow, finished it off well. Key Up Player of the Series nominees are Bwipo, Broxa, and Reckless. It's so tough because I also think that Nemesis had some great games. I think Hilly's save in Game 3 was impressive as well.
That's the thing. I feel like a lot of people will grab Hilly, and while the cool thing about this Fnatic roster and why they've kind of returned to form is the fact that after a series like this, you could make an argument to give it to anyone and everyone. But special shout out to Hilly. You were a bro.
So what I actually think is great is when we talked about it in Game 1, we never actually talked about this is the player that needs to step up. It was always like, it's a team thing. It's a team thing. It was always about the teams when it came to these two players. And while in Game 2 it was a little more about Kobe, in Game 3 it was a little bit more about Bwipo, ultimately this has been a battle between two very talented teams that we have here in Europe, and it was very, very close and enjoyable.
And also, some credit to Bwipo after having a difficult 2 games. The first one where he really struggled, the second game where he was focused by Splyce, he bounced back in stellar fashion. And that Lissandra in Game 4 was quite beautiful.
I think the big takeaway here is that you almost must focus Bwipo to try to put him down, because if you don't pay any attention to him, he will walk all over him. That said, now the remaining top laners are Bwipo, Wunder, and Alfari, and that is a very steep competition.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting. I'm looking forward to what happens next week, but we've got more League of Actions tomorrow as well.
We do indeed. G2 versus Origin tomorrow, 5 p.m. CST. Ready check 30 minutes before that. Before we get to that, though, we need to celebrate Fnatic's winning. To do so, we're going to stand by. Wait, for more today, I think we're going to...
For more on today's action, let's head over to Shocks and Friends in the LEC post-game lobby.
Nailed it.
Thank you.